The pre-writing stage is one of the most important stages in writing. It's where you get to do the thinking, the brainstorming, the designing, the creative part, where all the possibilities are put on a page and you slowly whittle it down. My name is Bernadette Tedesco, and in this lesson, I'm going to talk to you about the thinking stage of the writing process. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about what the thinking stage involves. I'm going to focus on purpose and audience, and then on context. I'm going to talk about discussing and collaborating, and the importance of reading and annotating, and then taking that to the next stage and planning something that you are going to take forward. Some of the most relevant study design dot points to think about in this lesson is the use of vocabulary, text structures, and language features, and how they're used in effective writing. Different strategies to generate and develop ideas. The ways purpose, context, and audience shape our writing. The range of ideas presented in various ways in mentor texts. Writing processes, including drafting, refining, and considering feedback. And the value of collaboration and discussion. As I go through, please pay attention if there are any blue or purple boxes. These will give you the key terms and difficult vocabulary that might appear and will help guide you. When you are thinking about your framework, there are a couple of different things you can do, irregardless of which framework you are working with. You could start by looking at examples of significant people and places related to your framework. They might be positive examples, negative examples. They could be modern, current examples, or past historical examples. These examples of people and places help get you started with some things that you might use contextually. You might also think about your own personal experiences related to the framework ideas. They might be internal experiences or external experiences, so things you think and feel or things you have participated in or been to yourself. You can also think about positive or negative experiences as well. These experiences don't necessarily have to be big. They could be just small things. So you could draw inspiration from prompts that spark ideas. They could be small things from the world around you, from the people around you, from your own school. You could use images as prompts or keywords. So you could create a collection of images and keywords that you think might spark an idea for you or spark some inspiration and get you started. You could even think about quotes as inspiration, quotes that you might want to include in your writing or quotes that get you thinking. You might even use your mentor texts to help gather ideas and examples. So you might have new insights about your framework, your particular framework, things that you hadn't thought about before. You might have ideas about structures and styles that might help you get started. There might be some keywords within your mentor text, or you could have some possible responses to that text that get you started. So the piece of writing might be a response to something you've just read or something that the mentor text said. What you should be doing is collecting all of these things as you are unpacking the mentor text, as you're talking with the people around you, as you're experiencing your life day to day. So collect all these ideas and inspirational sparks into a brainstorm, into a table, into a particular document that you can come back to as you need, as many times as you need to get that creative thinking started and sparked. There are many different forms of writing. The opportunities are endless, and that can be quite daunting. If you could choose any form at all without narrowing it down, where do you start? I would suggest going through this activity and narrowing down the types of writing you prefer by the different forms. And this can help you to decide what you might write. It can help you work out what purpose and audience you prefer as well, because each different type of writing, each different form would have a more suitable audience attached to it or a more suitable purpose. What I want you to do in this activity is I want you to sort the writing forms on the right into the table below to complete the activity. So just put it into whichever column. For example, when it comes to an essay, I'm very confident at writing an essay, so I would put that one in that column. How'd you go? Hopefully this really got you thinking about what forms of writing you feel most confident with. And this will be different for every single one of you. You will have your own personal preferences. This is what mine looked like. I'm very confident with writing an essay, an opinion piece, and a short story. They're the things I love to write. I'm fairly confident at writing a speech, a feature article, and a letter. These are things that I have done in my life, but they're not things that I choose to do. So I put them in my fairly confident list. I'm slightly comfortable, meaning that I can do it in terms of writing a memoir or journal entries. And I'm not really comfortable at all with writing a script. It's not something that I have done before very often, and so I've put that in my not comfortable at all. In looking at this, you might be thinking, well, that means I'm locked in. I'm only going to do my very confident and fairly confident ones. But that's not necessarily the case. Identifying a form that you are not comfortable with doesn't mean you should not do it. Just that you will need to research and practice it more if you are going to choose it. For example, there might be something that I want to say that would best be written as a memoir, especially if it's a personal experience. And I wouldn't want to lock myself out from doing that. But it just means I would then need to go off and find some examples of memoirs that are most suitable that I could use as models for my writing. So hopefully you realised that different forms of writing are more suitable for different purposes and audiences. Consider what you want to say and who would benefit from hearing it. Before you lock in your specific form, it's important to think about your purpose and audience. What do I want to say and why? It could be that I want to explain something or I want to reflect on something. I might want to argue or persuade, or I might just want to express my feelings and thoughts about something. This will influence the form of writing that is best suited. For example, if I wanted to argue something, a speech would be a really good form to choose. You also want to think about who do I want to say it to. So not just what I want to say, but who do I want to say it to. And when you're thinking about your audience, we often have to think about them in terms of stereotype, but not always. Your audience might be defined in terms of their age or their gender, their occupation or their interests, their background or their culture, their motivations and their concerns. Think about who would benefit from hearing what I have to say and who is it relevant to. Go back and look at what forms you are comfortable with and check to see if they are also suitable for your purpose and your audience. Okay, so they all are connected. You need to think about them all together because some are more suitable for some groups than they are for others. You also need to think about context. Your experiences, attitudes, and values impact your writing. Now, this can sometimes be hard to do because we often don't think about ourselves living in a particular context. Think about what has influenced the way you think about the world and about your framework of idea. What is your culture? Me, for example, my culture is Anglo-Saxon and in particular Irish. You want to think about your family and your friends and how they might influence the way you think and feel. They're also part of your context, as are your experiences. Living in the country versus living in the city, for example, involve different experiences. Also, issues that are occurring in your society. What are the issues that people are talking about and caring about right now? You can also look at events in your world, both current and historical. They could be within your community, your state, your nation, your world, a worldview. What are the things that are happening right now and in the past that are influencing what you want to say? Understanding your context can help you generate ideas that directly address the needs and interests of you and your audience. Your context can guide your research efforts and can influence the tone and style of your writing. You also need to think about the text's context. I know. So think about yourself, what impacts you. Think about what influences your text. What about the context that could exist within your text relating to historical, political, social, or cultural contexts? Are there any key people, places, or events that take place within your text that your audience will need to understand, or that you can assume that your audience would understand? Another important step in the thinking stage of your writing is discussing and collaborating. Diverse perspectives, collective expertise, and creativity will enrich your writing project, and they're actually part of the study design. Throughout the writing process, you will discuss and collaborate with others to help you with your writing. During the thinking stage, some discussion and collaboration activities that you do may include brainstorming and concept mapping sessions, roundtable discussions of prompts and topics, role-playing scenarios if it helps, debates and discussions on issues related to your framework, group writing activities, even a SWOT analysis of your writing plan before you begin can help. So you might get a group that look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats with your plan before you start writing. And there are many other opportunities for collaboration that might take place. Another thing that you should be doing during the thinking stage of your writing is to be inspired by other texts. Your mentor texts provide a wealth of inspiration. As you read them, make sure you annotate them, focusing specifically on the ideas in the text that relate to your framework, the strategies used by the authors to embed ideas. How do you know those ideas are there? What strategies have the authors used? The author's styles and voices, what makes each one unique. You will need to develop your own voice, and it can help to understand what a voice is by recognizing it in other people's writing. The vocabulary, structure, and techniques they use, especially the ones they use to engage the audience. The way they directly appeal to their audiences, making it clear who they are writing for. Remember, you are not limited to the set mentor text. You can look at other samples of quality writing that might provide you with inspiration, ideas, and authorial craft. I would recommend, however, that you run these past your teacher just to check that they are actually quality writing that you're using as inspiration. So when you're highlighting, these are the things that you could be noting down and making little annotations on. Once you have done all of this thinking, all of these brainstorms and annotations, all of these little activities to help you think about your context and who your audience is, what form you want to use, the next step is to actually organize your thoughts. This is actually the final step in the thinking stage of writing. Organize your ideas into a clear and logical order. You want to start by reviewing and selecting your ideas. Which ideas do you want to include? Then you want to group those ideas together. Which ideas are similar, are the most similar to each other? And you'll end up with a couple of different groups. You then want to prioritize your ideas, thinking about which ones are most important. Think about which ones would be best suited to the start, to the middle, which ones would be most suited to the end of the piece of writing. And based on the grouping and the prioritizing, you want to put those ideas into a logical order. I'd like you to have a go at this multiple choice activity just to check your learning. Which of the following activities is not typically associated with pre-writing thinking stage? So not typically associated with the pre-writing thinking stage of the creative writing process. Hopefully you were able to recognize that C was the correct answer. C is not part of the pre-writing thinking stage. In this stage, you need to read and annotate sample text for inspiration and ideas. You need to collaborate with peers to brainstorm and discuss potential topics. You need to consider the context, audience, and purpose of your writing. What you don't do in this stage is actually start writing. That's the next stage of the writing process. It's very important to think and plan before you start writing your draft to ensure you communicate your ideas effectively, work efficiently, and produce a high-quality piece of writing. You can, of course, come back to the thinking stage at any point throughout the writing, but you must make sure you do it before you jump in. So some of the key takeaways from this lesson is to begin by brainstorming ideas that relate to your framework, asking questions and looking at the framework in a variety of ways to help you dig deeper. You want to think about the context, audience, and purpose of your writing and choose the form that best suits your preferences and goals. You want to take the time to discuss and collaborate with others before you start writing to help enrich your writing and your ideas. You also want to use your mentor text to inspire you and as models of good writing that you can learn from. And finally, you want to organize your ideas into a logical sequence and plan your writing before you begin drafting. Some of the key terms that we've covered are historical context, political and social and cultural context, collaboration, and annotate. In the next lesson, you'll be looking at the writing stage of the writing process.